What's up, YouTube? It's your boy P.kidd. This is P.kidd Talks NBA, and we are going into the latest news of Jacque Vaughn being fired by the Nets today. And here's the interesting thing. I don't think this really comes as a surprise for anyone who has really watched the Nets and see how he came into his position and ultimately where they are now and how they've struggled. And it kind of boils down to a few things. And instead of just having this long intro, we'll jump right into it. Realistically, he had no real game plan. There was a lot of stagnation between that offense. And I'll be honest with you, I've watched a total of probably 10 Nets games. And I'm going to be very transparent. And in those Nets games, I was not impressed. I really wasn't because the game plan seemed to still be catered around players who were no longer there. The game plan that Jacque Vaughn seemed to have, although I will say he was definitely big on defense more and things of that nature, and I love him for that. There is some good that he had there. If we want to be clear, if we want to be consistent, and we want to be fair, but when it comes down to the individual game that he has set up, he didn't really have the players there. I was about to say New Jersey. The Brooklyn Nets are built not as a one-on-one, your turn, my turn type situation. Like they're not the Brooklyn Nets of old with KD, Kyrie, things of that nature, with a bunch of people that beat you off the dribble. That's never really been Mikal Bridges' game, not Cam Johnson's game. Anybody really there. I think the only person there is Thomas who could do it. But realistically, that's never been their game. That's not how they operate. Those are players who need a system and can operate well within that system. I honestly look at the Brooklyn Nets as a team that had a bunch of realistically, if we're being honest, they had all the key role players that teams are missing. Mikal Bridges to me is not a clear number one in today's league. Like he's not, and this is no disrespect to him. He's not like your Devin Bookers of the world or other twos or threes that you would have out there. And that's no disrespect. He is still a primary, like a really good player in the NBA. Definitely deserves his flowers. But there are levels to this, and there's only so many players within the league who can actually get a bucket on their own without a switch, without a pick and roll. Very few players can actually do that. In fact, many other former stars and current players say that today. Very few players who, on that level, on the elite level of NBA balling, can create a shot for themselves. And the Brooklyn Nets don't really have that one guy. And if they do, it's fringe. They need to operate within a lot of movement and be very system based. And there's nothing wrong with that. We've seen those teams be very successful. We've seen those teams even win championships. It's not something that's actually sustainable because you always need at least one superstar who can get a bucket on his own. But we've seen those systems actually come up and actually do damage. I'm thinking of the Detroit Pistons as one of them. I'm thinking of a later Spurs team, very, very past his prime, Tim Duncan, things of that nature. Very system based and with people who knew where to be, how to be, and how to operate within a certain framework. And they had a rising star in Kawhi Leonard who won Finals MVP, but he wasn't the Kawhi Leonard we know now. So I mean, those are the two teams that immediately come to mind. Mind you, even the last one is like, maybe not. Detroit Pistons, definitely so. There's no one on that team you would say was a clear superstar, but they worked together and their defensive presence allowed them to be dominant. The Nets now are kind of like that. They have just minus the Ben Wallace. Like they are very good at things collectively, not individually. If that makes sense. Like I know that people who watch basketball know what I'm trying to communicate, and I need to be better at articulating. I'm going to be transparent with that because the Nets are weird enough that it's like you're good, not great. You definitely should be in the playoffs, but no one really expects you to win. Like you're still one guy, one premier guy away. You have all the tools, but you need that one guy that's just a clear standout. And they don't have that. And that's just being transparent. That's just being fair. So with all that being said, you need a game plan that kind of wraps around that. Jacque Vaughn didn't do that at all. And the whole wishy-washy thing with Ben Simmons again, like Ben Simmons being there and the way that he pushed that offense at times when he was there, clearly, boom, easy. I can see that working out. But again, nah. So I look at this and say, I don't even think that this is a situation in which I blame Jacque Vaughn as much because I do believe that they are better than their record says. but he also doesn't have that one premier guy to help them be as competitive as they could be. And like they shouldn't be 11th in the Eastern Conference, but you shouldn't expect them to be 6. Like you should expect them to be 9 through 6. They should be a little better than the Bulls, and I'm a Bulls fan, but I wouldn't put them above the Pacers. And that's where they kind of are. So are they underperforming from that metric? Yes, and I can see why they got rid of him. Some of the players obviously voiced frustration. Mikal Bridges is one of them. He voiced frustration with how they were run and things of that nature. But the reality of it is, in a league where there's parity, where there's like one, maybe two superstars on the team, the Nets don't have any. The Nets have, again, all of the good role players that you would want. And so while I don't think this is an indictment on Jacque Vaughn as much as people like to think, I also don't think that this is necessarily fair because they're still missing a guy. And if he had like at least one guy on that team, this team would look totally different. I kid you not, and I'm not suggesting that this happens, but Paul George on that team's a playoff team. Paul George, you take any one of them, any one of Paul George on the Brooklyn Nets as they are currently constructed for the most part, that's a playoff team for sure. Because you have the guy. You have at least one guy who can keep you in a game, take over a game, and get you over the hump. And again, that's what's wildly missing. So it's a shame to see Jacque Vaughn actually get fired at this point, but it's also fair in the sense that he didn't cater to what he had in developing a system. I have to give him criticism on that. But I also think that the expectations for them is probably misconstrued because they are like one of the few teams that doesn't have the guy. Like there are teams who have the guy and not the structure around it. The Brooklyn Nets have all the structure and not the guy. And so a little bit of a I don't even know how to explain that one. I mean, it's tough, but it's one of the things that moving forward, the Brooklyn Nets, who have been a dumpster fire of an organization from how they handled the KD situation, how they handled the Kyrie Irving situation, even on the back end. You can say whatever you want to say, but on the back end, that was real trash. A lot of players have spoken on it. Even NBPA has even kind of spoken on that one. So real trash from that perspective. It's really funny and it's almost like a you get what you deserve type situation because Sean Desai has made horrible moves over there. Or Joe Desai, excuse me, has made horrible moves over there. Sean Marks has made horrible moves over there, and that's what they get. And so at the end of the day, I'm not going to lose sleep over. I don't think anyone else is. But if you're a Brooklyn fan, you probably had higher hopes. And the reality of it is, you probably need to sell off half that team or move those pieces to get one guy to go there and actually show up and show out for you all. Because without that, you're not going to be competitive. But I want to hear your thoughts. Whether it's love, whether it's hate, put it in the chat. I'll be in there with you. Till next time. Peace.